dude.
No, I'm trying to meet you at your level
God.
and show you that you're wrong on any level.
Gotcha. Hey, real fast, kind of
Just hold up for a minute, WITSIT. You got to listen to the conversation that was already in place.
Yeah.
He's got 160 IQ though. He knows better.
Dude, please just stop being
Moral,
so personally connected to me.
Moral,
It's weird.
your relativity stuff doesn't come into play here, Moral, not in any way. It doesn't matter. You're attempting to say you don't know what's moving and blah blah. It doesn't matter, Moral.
Well, I think he's making a good point, right? Like if you this is what
Nobody cares what you think.
if you invoke the theory, if you invoke the theory of relativity, right? I mean, you can't simultaneously claim to detect emotion that's contradictory.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Nobody brought it up.
We're not. There's a speed to this point. End of.
Okay. So relativity effectively says when I set my coffee cup on the table, the coffee cup's going down, the table's going up simultaneously.
What the fuck?
That's general theory of relativity, and it's about gravity.
Subsolar point.
Talking
I think
strictly
we're on the
just
subsolar point.
Yeah, exactly. Three different.
What's this got to do with coffee cups and tables?
Perv was making a point.
I guess
It's social point.
I'll happily hand
Deflect
it back
with anything, no matter how ridiculous it is, just to deflect.
I'll
No,
happily
sorry, I
hand it.
interrupted. Go
Johnny,
ahead, go
can I
ahead.
just listen? I'll hand it back to Curved and everybody here and WITSIT. Like, I'm glad you're here. I enjoy it when you come. Sorry if that sounded weird. But listen, when it comes to moving or not moving, like your physical form, you don't need a scientist or a PhD or an expert to tell you whether you're moving or not. And if we can't trust our senses in 2021, we are in serious trouble.
Your senses can be
Why are
easily
you arguing
fooled.
this?
If if people
It's got nothing to do
can't
with the subsolar
even-
point, Mel.
but if people can't figure out if they're moving or not, I think it shows you where humanity's at, doesn't it?
Moral,
Your
but
senses can be
Vegemite,
easy-
Moral, Vegemite.
Your senses can be easily fooled. Your ears are not attuned for movement. They are
It's
attuned
got
for
nothing to do with
deceleration.
subsolar point.
That's true too.
And troglodyte. That's necessary.
But if you're talking about the relativity, it was excused
We're not.
from Einstein. There was,
We're not
was
talking
people-
about relativity, Johnny.
But it was before.
To answer your first question, if we're talking about it, is no, we're not.
It's not. I didn't bring it up for no reason. A lot of people are having an
I asked you
existential
why you
crisis.
did. Will you tell us why you did?
People are having an existential crisis because the narrative doesn't give people closure. It just gives them questions.
We're asking
No, no,
you
no,
about
wait.
the speed of the subsolar point.
That's
You've
because you're
got a
too
big
stupid to
bang.
figure it out.
You've got a big bang, evolution, crawling out of slime, evolving from monkeys and being in space. Are you
They're scared
surprised
shitless
that
of this.
people aren't
No,
having
they
an
can't
deal
existential
with it.
crisis?
No, I.
Why are you so
They're
scared, guys?
confused.
Subsolar point.
confused.
Stick on it.
They're confused about their lives.
You're confused.
Bro,
That's
can we not do this? Curve.
No,
we're already in the
because
conversation about the
subsolar
subsolar point. You
The
guys
subsolar
aren't.
point doesn't lead anywhere, Kosher.
Yeah, but Merle,
Yes,
what
it
you're
does.
doing is just purposely leading away from what we're talking about.
Because it doesn't lead anywhere.
Yes,
it leads
does.
directly
And-
to your
and you
ass,
guys
Merle,
always
and it
do this.
destroys
You take
it.
control of the room when people like Johnny and KIMO and WITSIT and me are here, and you bring up like bunked arguments. They're
They're not,
just
this
whack.
isn't a punk argument.
It's
This
not
one
even
just
worth
proves your flat
entertaining.
earth fantasy.
Yeah, Merle, we've been
Johnny
talking about
was
this. for
babbling
10 years.
about chess
Talking
when
about
I
the
brought this up.
fundamentals
Do you
of human
understand that,
existence.
Merle?
I don't give a shit
Johnny
about the
was
fundamentals of
babbling
human
about
existence.
chess, motherfucker. When I brought this up, I did not take control of the room and steal it away from you and dipshit and KIMO. It didn't happen.
You kind of try though.
We were
You're
already just
full of
listening.
shit, Merle.
Because
You're
we
a
debunk your
gutless
shit.
sack of
You
shit.
can't debunk anything.
Yes, the subsolar point debunks your flat
Well,
earth fantasy,
Get on
you moron.
point, man.
Oh my god.
Guys, let's calm
How's
down.
the
man.
subsolar point work then, Mel? Go ahead.
Was subsolar point is the sun, the reflection of the sun on the surface of the earth.
Yes,
And how
but
do
At
you
what
know
speed
that?
does that move across the
Gee,
surface
it's
of the
so
earth at
important
various
and interesting
places?
and riveting and life-changing info.
no, it's a really
Well, I hate
boring
to break
point, but
it
it
to you, but you're too
disproves.
stupid for this discussion. You really are. You
Merle,
don't
Merle,
have
how-
the
Merle,
basic necessary intelligence to discuss this, Merle.
Help
You
us
just
to
are
have a
Right.
talking
conversation.
like a child, as WITSIT will do soon enough.
A reflection like a
Just keep
child
my
on the
name out of
ground.
your mouth, dude. Stop being weird.
Let's
That's a
let's
little
just
disappointing, Mel. I
Hey,
thought you'd
you
have
think
something
you'll
more
fuck
than that.
yourself, WITSIT.
Stop saying my name so much. It's weird.
You're going to talk like a child before this is all over, just like Merle was.
You don't know anything about the sun.
I
Yes,
know
we
your
do.
MO.
Here we go.
Oh,
We
I
don't
don't
know
get it. I
anything.
don't need to.
Point.
Watch,
Why
I'll
don't we
prove you
get
guys
into the-
don't know anything about
why
your
don't
own
we get
religion.
into the argument
Is the
then?
sun
Need
a
to.
gas giant?
Hold on. Wait.
Yes.
You
No.
don't need
Not
to.
Okay,
gas
you're an
giant.
idiot.
No,
You're
hold
now
on,
excluded from this
so we
conversation.
so we can bring up the conversation we were talking about, which is somewhat pertaining to the sun. That way we don't go into some sideways subject related to the sun. Someone will bring up the actual conversation we were having, and then we'll talk about it instead of going around in circles.
No, it's the conversation you guys want to have. We don't want to have that
having with
conversation.
Anthony. We were having this
Yeah, because
conversation
it
with
fucks
Anthony.
you up. That's why.
It doesn't fuck anything up.
It fucks
And then
you
I
right
asked
up.
Johnny
Right up.
It
about it,
doesn't fuck
and you
anything
decided to bring
Neither does
relativity
coccyx.
into it.
Yes.
None
Or at
of-
least your view of relativity.
Nothing.
You entered this conversation, Merle, willingly.
Nothing
Talking to
any
Johnny.
of you have fucks us up.
Go ahead. You can't listen to anybody, can you, Merle? You can't
Okay,
listen.
so how does where does water start curving curved water?
That's not what we're talking about here.
Right. Who
That's the
cares?
exact
Where
problem.
does
So-
water start curving curved
so
water?
why don't we just?
Well, I guess it
Where
curves at the
does
geometric,
water start curving
not what we're
at
talking
the
about.
geometric horizon.
Where does the
man.
circle
Where?
start to curve?
Geometric
Where?
horizon.
Where does the circle start to curve,
Oh,
Merle?
it fucks you up.
At the geometric
Where,
horizon.
Merle? It fucks you up, curved, doesn't it? You don't like
Oh,
being
you're fucked.
fucked up, do you?
Moron, I just answered you.
Oh, what did you say?
You dipshit. Where does the circle start to curve?
When does a circle start to curve? That's presupposing
It
the circle,
doesn't.
right?
The whole goddamn thing is curved. It doesn't start
Bit
to
of a
curve.
presupposition there, curved.
It's all curved. Where does a ball start to curve?
What ball?
The ball we're on.
Okay, so where can we start to visually see that curvature?
Don't
Where
ask a
can you
question that was
start
just
to
asked.
see it?
Yeah,
Go
visually.
outside,
Visually, we
look
can't
at it,
see it when we look at
you'll
the water.
start
It
to
looks
see it.
flat. It looks flat. So when do we start to see the
Only to
curvature?
a shallow mind.
Answer
Right, so
Merle's
you
question.
You can't
did.
answer. You can't answer the question, and
How many
you
different
live
ways
on.
have I answered it? And all you can do
You-
is sit there playing in your diaper saying you can't answer it.
No, that's
when I
you.
You haven't answered it either, Mel.
The globe is the sandpit. When did you progress from that? When did you have harder thoughts about what life is
Thousands of
and where
years
you
ago.
exist, you fat fuck?
Thousands of years.
When are you going to pop my head, Merle?
Hey, can we calm down?
When did you progress from the globe, curved water?
This is why we were
When-
sitting on this
when
and
did
we're
it
talking about
happen,
this is
Curve?
evolving into nothing.
Let's
else.
talk about
Kosha, you're
progression.
interrupting.
No, I'm not interrupting. I'm stopping him from doing
We're having a
this.
conversation, Curved and Mel.
No,
And we've got three voices.
Hey, let's all calm down. If we
Was,
don't,
is there a
talk-
number to like your healthcare services down there?
Hey,
So
if
that
we
you can
don't
call
talk-
in?
Let's
we talk at the
just
same
talk
time,
about
we
the
can't hear you.
It's
progression.
triple O.
Why are you yelling?
It's like your
let's talk
911
about the
emergency
progression.
services.
Talk about how much curved water's progressed here. He's a globe head, guys.
Why don't you DM him about it?
We know that.
Why do
Yeah,
I need
you're
to
all
progress
globe
when I'm
heads.
already the
You
Yes,
realize
I'm
what we're
pinnacle
doing
of
here, right?
knowledge,
We're
Will.
talking to
Delusional.
fucking globe heads.
And you're still delusional. We know we are
Well,
close.
hey, but look, I think he asked a good question.
You're
Like,
fucking globe heads.
this is the question. Let's try to have some of a
Brian.
productive conversation with the point, right? Like, did any of you guys actually come across the flat Earth information, say the 200 proofs or anything, and then actually critically assess it for a second, where even momentarily you entertained the possibility?
Yes.
Really? So,
We've
Kurt,
been
you,
through years of answering this question, WITSIT. Yes.
no,
Have
calm
you,
down.
WITSIT?
Since
Yeah,
2012, WITSIT.
Yeah.
Since 2012,
Yeah,
dipshit.
so you can
you looked
honestly
at it
say,
critically.
yeah, I
You
did.
looked at the 200 proofs critically.
Yeah.
Right.
So many of them have like grasp
Which
at
is really
straws.
only 20 proofs.
Many of them have grasp at straws, bullshit arguments for the globe, right? But my point is very simple. Have you guys actually entertained the conversation honestly? Can you actually say you have?
Yes.
Okay, because how over the top you guys react to every small thing that's said actually says the opposite, right? You have this emotional connection and predisposition since the beginning. You heard about flat earth, thought it was stupid, and you
Here
haven't
we
progressed
go.
beyond
It's
that.
all
so.
about emotions.
Instead of talking about each other and are making assumptions that are just stupid.
All right, what
we
you
should
got
get
there,
back to the
Kosher?
dramas. Let's just get back to the subject.
All right, what you got? What you got?
It's not entertaining for people.
All right, then let's get to it. What have you got to prove the globe?
We were talking about the subsolar point.
All right, break it down. All right, step by step. The problem is, Kosher, is that people are not following what.
Stop talking. Stop talking.
People are not following what you're saying. Subsolar point. What is the subsolar point?
So the answer can be given to you.
What is the subsolar point?
Yeah, we're talking about the subsolar point.
What is it? What is it?
Stop talking.
I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, I don't care, dude. That's the problem. Is you're asking a question.
Coach, you
are we talking about the subsolar point or not?
About the subsolar point and how the
you got no
calm
juice.
down. He's trying to.
Hold on a second. We're talking about subsolar point. I'm asking you a question about subsolar point, and you're saying stop talking.
Look it up. I'm in the middle of speaking. Please stop.
What is the subsolar point?
And how the length of the path changes as it goes from the equinox, when the subsolar point is above the equinox, when it's above the equator, and when it's above the when it's above the tropics, and when it's above the equator, and the different size paths that it makes.
How do you know this? Can you show me this subsolar point? How do you know this about the subsolar point, Kosher? Can you show me?
Have you not seen the evidence, KIMO?
No.
What if the radius of light? Let's just end. Oh my God! What if the radius of light changes? You lose. Let's move on. Let's move on.
That's not a loss. That's your loss.
No, you lost.
No,
what radius of light? We're talking about the point, the center of the sun, the place on Earth from which the center of the sun would appear directly straight up.
It's around noon.
There's no radius of light to consider there. What are you talking about?
Well, actually, your better argument is the supposed angles of the light relative to its positioning to explain the seasons, where you invoke a tilt.
No, we're talking about the subsolar point.
That's why I'm asking them to break down the subsolar point. Kosher, again, what is, and show us your subsolar point.
It's a position. It's a single position on Earth, the unique position on Earth, where because the sun is directly above, it will create no shadow.
I asked you how you know this.
So that's how you know that's a subsolar point.
How do you know this?
KIMO, shut the fuck up, dude. For fuck's sake, dude.
Well, you're either talking about it or not.
That's a subsolar point. That's how you verify that's a KIMO. Shut the fuck up, dude. Like, honestly, honestly, it's not gonna be tolerated, dude. Just when I'm talking, just don't talk. Like, ask me.
How'd you verify it? How'd you verify it?
I'm in the middle of saying that. You verify the subsolar point by checking that there's no shadows being produced there.
How?
It means how inside.
Where? I want to see this in action.
It's right above you. It's not creating a shadow.
Cite it. Cite you did it all over the Earth to prove the Earth's a ball. Cite it. You did it. You never do. You make up shit.
Listen, dipshit. Listen to the argument first. That way you know what you're arguing against.
I know exactly what your argument is. Cite it.
You said cite it to prove this. That's what the subsolar point is. Now you're saying some other measurement.
No. I said cite that you did this all over the Earth.
There you go, dipshit.
What we're describing is the Tropic of Cancer. That's the part of the that's the tropic where the sun is. The subsolar point travels on the equinox in the spring. And then the equator would be the path that it travels on the that's on the equinox, I'm sorry. And on the summer solstice is when it's on the Tropic of Cancer. And the winter solstice is on the Tropic of Capricorn.
Okay, why is it impossible on a flat Earth?
The question is, what are the length of those paths?
Why is it impossible on the flat Earth?
That's what I'm getting to, but you guys don't shut the fuck up.
Monologuing, Kosher.
Those are three circular paths. The Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, and the equator. On a flat Earth or on any flat plane, the Tropic of Cancer would be a circle. The the equator would be a bigger circle around the Tropic of Cancer, and the Tropic of Capricorn would be an even bigger circle around the equator. So you'd have three concentric circles getting bigger and bigger. That would make sense on any flat plane. You can make that make sense. What actually happens is that the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn are not different sizes. They're the exact same size, both smaller than the equator. So that tells you.
Would they be bigger? What do you? Yeah, so you know that you can't actually just look at the map south of the equator and pretend that's the accurate representation. And do you know how fast the sun moves?
Subsolar point tells you that, dipshit.
Really? So okay, exactly. So can the sun change speed?
On a given day, you can measure its speed that it's traveling, and if it's traveling across the Earth at a certain distance per minute, per hour, whatever, and it's consistent, which it's going to do, you don't need to worry about changing speed because you're watching it not change speeds.
How the fuck do you know?
Oh, wait a second.
Because we made these measurements plenty of times.
The subsolar point speed is about 950 miles an hour on each of the tropics, while it's about 1037, 1038 or so around across the equator.
So the sun can change speed
on a flat Earth,
unless the sun's changing speed.
No, the sun's not changing speed. That's the part you're not getting. The measured speed of the subsolar point, I don't give a fuck what the sun does. The subsolar point, the speeds are there. They match on the tropics, slower than the equator, which is not what you would need for a flat Earth. This is too simple for you guys, and you're desperately afraid, and you have to chimp out and throw up all kinds of stupid attempts.
Right, so did Jeremy model it?
Carry on.
Did Jeremy measure it, Kosho?
No, Jeremy got spanked by WITSIT, and Jeremy gave up because WITSIT's a lying cockamaniac.
So it hasn't been measured then? Yet.
It's been measured, just not by Jeremy.
Okay, how did you come to the realization about the subsolar point curve?
Go to time and date. Look at it.
How did you come to the realization and start focusing on the subsolar point in 2021?
Time and date. I got these ideas. I said, if the Earth is a globe, then X. If the Earth is flat, then Y. I looked it up on time and date. It confirmed that what I said would be true of the globe is what is true. And falsifying flat Earth. It's really very simple. Like you guys, very simple.
Mm-hmm. So for one, why is the shadow relative to the position of the sun if it's actually 93 million miles away with parallel rays?
We're not talking about parallel rays.
That's the dumbest question you've asked so far.
Oh, I gotta run away.
None of that stuff is relevant at all.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's sorcery. It's not relevant. Then it doesn't.
That's why we're not talking about the sun or the shadows or anything. We're talking about the subsolar point, which is strictly the
You're not talking about
Earth.
the sun or shadows?
Yeah, we're talking about the position on Earth.
Because the incoming light rays are aligned with the vertical object there that's casting no shadow.
At least Curve knows he has to answer the question. Kosho's a mental midget and said it doesn't matter.
I'll do it all fucking day, WITSIT. You got nothing.
Okay, you admit Kosho's an idiot for saying it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
KIMO, there's something sus going on here. Like, why have Woz and Curved and Kosho got the subsolar point script? No one else is trying to.
Jeremy was fucking.
Because it's a model that we're trying to get us to build, and we keep telling them we don't have a model. So this is just their sneaky attempt for us to build them a model.
Right.
This is not about a model.
This is not about a model. What are you talking about?
Flat.
How did you guys become
disproving flat
experts?
We're not dealing with
flat because you don't know how the sky works. You don't know how the sky or the sun works. So how can you disprove flat?
But it's very simple. Listen, guys, you guys are so arrogant. It's hilarious. Cite that you went and actually recorded it. Cite it. You can't. You're liars.
We don't have to do that.
You are liars.
There's 23 people.
We don't have to do that.
Measure how the subsolar point changes over any given day, but we did it on the solstice. I mean, on the equinox, and you can see that as there's 360 degrees in the circle around the Earth, whether it's flat or a globe, and there's 24 hours, and so it's going to move 15 degrees per hour, and so all you have to do is measure how many of those, what the distance is that changes between when it's solar noon an hour later.
Don't tell us what you have to do. Cite that it was done.
Per hour.
Cite it was done.
23 people, and I had to measure each person's subsolar point. I mean, each person's local solar noon.
Oh, so you did that?
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah, cite it.
We didn't do this test to do this exact thing, but we had to proxy do the same thing. I had to measure each of their subsolar points. Yeah, I had to measure each of their local solar noons and their positions and the distances between them. So it's the same thing. It's just not for the same outcome.
Okay. You want to cite that you did this all over the areas of the Earth you would need to make your point, or are you just assuming it happens because you looked at time and day?
No, we did it with 22 other people.
Okay,
No, he
cite
did
it.
it.
I think Waz was one of
Cite
the
the
people.
documentation.
Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to find it somewhere on my hard drive. One sec.
I have it.
Kosho's not the only one. Slice Arcane has done this. There's a video on that too.
He went all
It's
around the world.
somewhere as well if you
This
need
is
it.
not revolutionary, groundbreaking stuff. This is shit simple stuff.
Slice Arcane is simpleton. So you
Talk about his video. Talk about Kosho's measurements. Talk about what Kosho did.
Kosho didn't do anything.
I mean, they're looking like the cat that's got the cream. That's how they sound, though, isn't it, KIMO and WITSIT?
That's
You hear 'em?
projection if I ever
Yeah, they
heard
think
it.
that they think that they're like badasses. They're so arrogant. It's hilarious.
So,
You guys want to talk about
we're
behaviors.
so impotent. All we
There's
can
the
do
paper.
is sit here and try to make jokes. We have no
This-
viable
right.
arguments against this.
How about you cite it
You
and do
guys
some sit-ups
know it.
while you're at it, Curve?
Well,
Stop
I
bragging
cited
and cite
There
it.
we go. See? Sit-ups.
Yes, it up.
Hey, who's got that picture of fat-ass WITSIT in his mother?
Yeah, I'm so
Right, here
fat.
we go. Any
Thanks,
excuse,
Woz.
Curve. Any excuse.
I got
Wait
that
a
one.
second, Kimo. You can't. He was just sitting there calling me fat, saying I couldn't do sit-ups and all
He
this.
doesn't
other
know what
shit.
you look like. It's just a
did
general
that, Kimo.
statement, you know?
And then I responded, Kimo. I responded in kind.
Oh, unless you are really that way.
No, I responded in kind, Kimo. But you're going to
Childish response.
down on me for retaliating when he started.
Well,
it,
Curve,
Kimo.
when I wasn't even engaged
You
in the
have a bias,
conversation,
don't you,
hey,
Kimo?
Curve, when I wasn't even
Hey,
engaged in
Winston,
the
shut up.
conversation,
I was talking with
you know I'm about to expose you. When I
Winston,
wasn't
shut
even
your
engaged in the
fucking trap.
conversation, you threw
You
out like
fat
10 insults.
fucking jelly
and brought
roll
my-
eating scum. Shut the fuck up. I was
The
talking.
fact you can call me
But why
fat is
are you
so
not being
funny. dude.
interrupted when you interrupt everybody all
This
the
is
time?
just,
I don't like this one.
this is not a
Keep it
conversation.
down. Keep it down, please.
No,
all right, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Why is he doing this?
Why are you
Okay, so
doing
Curve,
this?
Curve,
Alright,
when I
just
wasn't
why
even
did you
involved in
attack
the...
me?
I'm
All right,
gonna
just
say it.
let Curve
retaliating.
finish. Just let Curve finish what he had to say. Then we can move on. Go ahead, Curve.
It's very simple. I want an answer from Kimo why he
No,
attacked me for
just make your point and
retaliating
let's
All
move
against-
on.
right, all right. We don't want to talk about the conversation. We want to have the conversation. So, did you have a point to make in the conversation?
Oh, that's what I've been trying to do until he attacked me
Okay,
personally.
well,
yeah.
please go ahead.
Everybody's waiting. Come to the point.
We've made our points. There's no reputation.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that I wasn't even engaged in the conversation, and Curve said my name personally 7 times.
Just make a
Oh,
point.
you're a
of that.
liar, Curve. We can move on.
Yeah, this idea about
Now we can't. Now we can't move on, can we? Because now he
Yeah,
needs
we
Oh,
to
and he needs to
respond.
be exposed, Jim.
Well, now
because-
he needs to respond to you calling him a liar when we could have
Okay,
just
okay.
moved on.
If
I'll
if
just
we
play it
can
on the
move
live
on,
stream.
we
I'll
can
just
move
Go
play it
on.
ahead and respond, Curve, please.
Did you hear me, Jem?
I thought you wanted to respond to him just calling you a liar.
Well, listen to me. I said we can move on if he will move on. How many
Oh
times do
my
I have
God.
to say it?
Yeah, but I didn't think he was moving on.
Well, we can,
He's
yeah.
not.
Right.
I'm making the
Right.
point we can if you will.
Right,
We
let's
can move
move
on.
on.
We all heard it. No big deal.
So regardless of what the way we did our test, the point is that the way that when I had to set everybody up, I had to look at what time it was going to be for each of them. There's local, solar, noon, the distances between them, all that stuff. Well, if you the test that we were playing it out the way Jeremy was going to do it was simply to find people, let's say along the tropic. You find them all along the Tropic of Capricorn, south of the equator, and you measure the distance the local solar noon is 1 hour apart. So whatever distance it is, 1 hour apart from each other, you can multiply that by 24, and that will give you the distance of the entire plane, or the entire distance of the path of the sun that day. And you can measure it in 2 different hours, so you're not just guessing that it's going the same speed. You can make sure it's going the same speed by measuring 2 different intervals or 3 different intervals. But that's all you have to do. And you measure 24-hour distance, which is the complete path, and you compare it to the equatorial distance and the other tropic distance. And if you get 2 circles that are both outside of the equator, one's north and one south, and they're the same size, and smaller than the equator, there's no way that you can put there's no way you can make that a 2-dimensional flat plane. It has to be a 3-dimensional shape, regardless of what shape you think it is.
Yeah.
So we are going to give us a degree error rate, right? But if it's close enough, we'll assume it's a globe. That's the first thing I'm reading here. Let me keep reading.
What other shape could it work on?
This is so funny.
What shape could it work on?
Like, you guys posted this. This is the funny part.
I didn't say I was going
So
to
because there's an error rate, that means the thing cannot be known at all.
Yeah, but
Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. I didn't say the error rate is going to tell us it's a globe. I said if it's below the error rate, then we'll use those measurements. If it's above the error rate, then we're
what it says
we'll say that it's not conclusive. And I didn't say for a globe. I said for a globe or a flat Earth.
No, what it says is. So it says if the data closely matches the globe predictions, we will conclude the Earth's a globe.
Okay, what else does it say? Because it also says the same thing about the flat plane. So
yeah, okay.
So don't leave that out and try to be dishonest about it. I said it's for both those.
Okay, so what it
one
says,
of those, it will be that.
Yeah, what it says is that we're going to allow for an entire degree of discrepancy with each recording, and if it matches the globe closely, we'll conclude the Earth's a globe. That's what I said. It said. That's what it says. So we'll move on.
And what does it say about the flat plane? Does it say
you made You made straw man predictions. You made predictions of a straw man model.
No, I didn't make predictions of a straw man model. I made 2 attributes. I said the attributes are it's a globe with a sun that is far away enough to give us nearly parallel light rays, or it's a close and local sun on circling over a flat plane. That's the only assumptions. That's not an assumption. Those are the only things you need to do to make the predictions. Close and local and flat plane, which is not, it's not outside of anybody's flat Earth.
Yeah.
So on the flat plane, do you have parts of the object disappearing due to the diffraction limit?
No.
So if it's not a globe, what could it work on? What other shape could it work on?
Flat's not a shape, right?
Right. So what could it work on?
The
Earth actually is.
Diffraction limit.
What?
Where an object gets too far away from you and eventually it merges into the surface, cutting off the object.
We're not talking about that.
No, that's what we're talking about, Mr. Bird. Go to the YouTube, wind back about an hour and catch up with the conversation.
We're talking about the subsolar point.
All right, so how do you get a flat surface matching up with all of these different angles of elevation at the same time of the common object?
You'd have to factor in the diffraction limit.
No, there's no diffraction limit involved in this, you idiot.
Yeah, the diffraction limit where the object eventually merges into the surface, no matter how far away it is.
We're not talking about
the surface limit.
We're not talking about. We're talking about the subsolar point.
Talk about somebody
with objects on the horizon.
Script.
I know.
Calm down for a minute, Lemon, and just listen to the conversation.
Yeah, just hang in there, dude.
So, what shape could it work on? Shape, whatever you want to call it. How could it work on a?
It can work over.
I don't know if it works.
Yeah,
no
how?
Subsolar point would be a circle.
This requires
a circle on the flat plane.
This requires the assumption that. It requires the assumption that you've effectively eliminated refraction directly overhead. It requires the assumption of an actual position. It then requires for your globe, stupid fairy tale, the assumption of parallel rays. So, but this doesn't matter. You can skate past all your presuppositions, then strawman the flat Earth, and that makes the Earth a globe.
There's not a presupposition.
That's
the fact
not an answer,
you cannot take this data and have it comport to a flat surface. That's not
your data is flooded with presuppositions.
I was not finished.
It's not. It's just
waited for you to finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, the point remains you can't do it. It will not come even close. And you're picking on Kosho about his little 1 degree of error allowing for that when you guys are orders and orders of magnitude outside of a degree of error with you trying to match it up to a flat Earth.
Requires presuppositions about the sun. Do you want to write it down in crayons?
Well, look, to be fair, you guys watch videos and make presuppositions that there's a massive lie going on because of the videos you see. Why can't you apply that form of thinking to what we see and apply their observations of real life, the sun subsolar point, and how that could work on a flat or whatever shape you want to call it, flat Earth.
Well, the sun is
I'll look into
circling
this,
over
and it
the
will take me less
surface.
than a day to dismantle it. It's not even a question in my mind.
It doesn't require any assumptions.
Yes, it does. I just said what they are.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
it
you're not
requires
right.
the
You're
assumption,
looking,
requires
you're
the
looking,
presupposition
you're
of the actual
determining,
location.
you're
It requires-
determining the position by looking at a shadow made by a stick, right? So,
and then correlating it to the position of the sun that you made assumptions about.
So, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think the sun is. All we're talking about is when the shadow disappears, when there's no longer a shadow. That point when that happens. Doesn't matter why you think that happens. It's irrelevant. It's when that happens. And we can see when that happens at different locations and plot the time between them. It's as simple as that. So trying to obfuscate with, oh, we don't know what the sun is or you're assuming things about it, is entirely irrelevant.
No, it's not.
Doesn't even matter if the light isn't parallel. We still get this point where there's no shadow, and we can plot that point around the world.
Then make assumptions about the sun and how.
What assumption does that require?
It seems like
we observe that shadow disappearing every day. It's not an assumption. We see it happen every single time without fail.
Once you have the shadow, you don't need to know anything about the sun or need to make up anything about the sun. You're just using the shadow. You're using the fact that
you're making the assumptions.
No, I'm not making an assumption.
You're assuming you don't know what the sun is.
No, yeah, that's not an assumption, you moron.
Nervous.
Yeah,
you're making assumptions that you know what the sun is.
But that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter if you're wrong about
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if you're wrong with the sun, because it has nothing to do with what the sun is. It has to do with the shadows that it produces. And
it doesn't matter where the sun is?
Either of these measurements, they're both with the shadows it produces.
Does it matter where the sun is?
No.
No, it doesn't matter where the sun is.
Wrong spot and still producing those shadows.
Well, why would it matter, WITSIT? Why would it matter, WITSIT, where the sun is? What assumptions can you make about that?
Because you're literally saying, well, now that the sun's directly overhead, we're correlating the sun's path over top of a flat Earth and concluding it's impossible because of the shadow. But you guys are remedial.
Said the sun's,
and if it's not,
just saying we're remedial. What's your reasoning?
You just said it doesn't matter where the sun is, and then you climb over it.
It doesn't.
Not in your claim.
How does where the sun is? How do we? We don't even need to see the sun. It just doesn't matter. All we need to do is plot the position of the timing of the subsolar point. It doesn't.
It's a position on the Earth.
Right.
And in order to eliminate refractive effects and stuff, you claim that you wait till it's directly overhead and that we can assume there's no refraction. I'm reading his dumbass
not
paper.
looking at the sun.
These are two different measurements. We're talking about two different things now, dude.
We're looking at a
shadow.
shadow.
Why is this all in your paper then?
That's my paper. We're doing the Aristophanes test. We're talking about the subsolar point and measuring the distances of the of the tropics.
Do try to keep
this
up.
Isn't the actual paper.
No, that is the paper of what I did. What I did had to do, I had to do the same thing. I had to measure the distances between the positions and measure the time between the local solar noons, but indirectly doing the same test that we're describing now, which is simply about the distances around the tropics. They're two different purposes, but they both require the same idea, measuring the local solar noon.
You know, Kosho, it's funny. They're still arguing vehemently against something they don't even understand.
Right.
Says curved. Who argues for theory of relativity but has never read
right
it.
Says me.
Hey,
and I'm right.
Yeah, you're right, curved. You're right.
I am, and you
we
can't
see
do
hundreds
anything about it.
No,
You're
see,
powerless.
this is the point
fair,
you don't
haven't
get,
given us
right?
anything with it.
To be fair, you guys
haven't
ignore the
given us
fact that we
anything.
can. To be fair, see, what we actually know is that you must physically measure the surface of the Earth to know what it is. To be fair, you clown shows run away from that and point at the sky and make up stories. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
We physically measured the surface of the Earth. You guys just deny that it's happened.
I dismantled you yesterday on this.
You pretend that thousands of people hundreds of thousands of people doing this for hundreds of years have all just got it wrong, or were actually taking plane measurements and then assigning them to a sphere, even when they didn't even know what the exact shape of that sphere was, and they went to measure it. They were still assigning it to a sphere.
Okay, so what actually happens is that you take physical measurements, assuming a plane, you then compile them, then you make observations over long distance, then you make a calculative deduction, assuming a rough area of a radius. You then try to compare it to that, trying to get over a 90% accuracy percentage, and this is in 2021.
Yeah.
So see, you guys run away from the most important part of the subject. You're so
running away.
Audacity to
How is
pretend
that running away? You're saying we make measurements and there's an error margin in our measurements. So what? Those measurements still show the Earth is spherical. None of them ever show it's flat, WITSIT.
Yeah, what? Okay, so
I said none of them. Listen, do I need to repeat it? I don't know why that was funny.
I just thought it was dumb.
Well, let me say it again because you found it amusing and it wasn't amusing for you. So let me say it again. The Earth has never ever been measured to be flat ever by anybody using this method ever. Not once ever.
Is literally used to supposedly calculate the presupposed sphere. So you just showed how dumbass you are because you just said no one's ever used this method and measured a flat. It's literally a method assuming a sphere. You psychopath.
Again, it doesn't assume a sphere.
Again, it does assume a sphere.
Well, it doesn't. You're
yes,
wrong.
It does.
You're wrong.
Okay, watch. I'll prove that you don't know in any way what you're talking about. Does it compare to
I proved it.
Hey, do you compare it to your NDSA model? Yes or no?
The French-Spanish geodesic mission did not compare it to any model because the model was not known. That was why that mission occurred, so that they could settle this issue. There was no model to apply it to. They did not have one. You are wrong.
Really? What radius value did they get?
That's when they figured out it was an oblate spheroid.
What radius value did they get?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You don't know shit, and you brought this up for 2 years.
Oh, do you know about it? Do you know about it?
Yeah, I do. I know about it.
What do you know that refutes it, WITSIT? Fucking expert. Let's fucking hear it. Come on.
All right, Jim, this is what I know.
What radius value did they get, WITSIT?
This is what I know about
you don't know, and you're a top flat Earth researcher, a globetrotter, and you don't know? What radius value did they get, WITSIT?
Close to what they presupposed.
How do you know that? So the whole point was they didn't know if the Earth was oblate or stretched at the poles. So there was no presupposition. They didn't know. They went to find out. You tell me what they presupposed.
Shut up!
What evidence do you have that they presupposed anything?
You think if you just talk to yourself that the Earth's a ball, you dumbass? Stop interrupting me.
Okay, so I want evidence that the French-Spanish...
I want you to shut up.
I want evidence that the French-Spanish geodesic... If you interrupt, I'll just mute you, WITSIT. I want evidence that the French-Spanish geodesic mission presupposed anything. Go ahead.
Okay. You just said they were trying to figure out if it was oblate or stretched to the poles, which means it's trying to figure out what type of a spherical shape it is. You lose for the millionth time in a row.
How is that a presupposition? How is that a presupposition?
Yeah, they assumed that the Earth was a sphere.
Define presupposition.
Assuming the Earth's a sphere is a presupposition.
Define assuming.
What?
Define assuming.
They went into the observations with the assumption that the Earth was a sphere.
Define assumption.
Just blindly believing something and then trying to reify it.
So they had no reason at all to believe that the Earth was spherical, is your claim. No reason whatsoever to think that in the 1790s.
Was there, in the 1790s, was there any reason at all to believe the Earth was flat?
No, of course not.
So you're just a fucking liar, Jim.
There's never been any reason. There's never been a reason.
I guarantee.
When you lie, you have
little dick. Hey, I want you to know something, man.
Good argument, WITSIT. Good, powerful, intellectual forum argument there. You've got a little dick. Brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant. What a star you are.
That's why you muted me. No, I'm not saying that's...
Yes, I did mute you. Because
I'm saying that when you
lie... You're in a hangout of grown men going, you've got a little dick. Because you've been beaten in an argument, you fucking moron.
No. What I'm saying is that when you lie a lot, right, it's reflective of that, and that's why you have to interrupt me and scream a lot because you have little dogs.
You're retarded. You're retarded.
So,
Stop.
Your claim is that people in the...
Why do people get to interrupt me for 20 minutes and you don't?
Because all you're doing is slagging me off, you cunt.
I've been trying to answer the question specifically.
Go ahead and answer the question, then.
There you go again, you little bitch. You interrupt me every time.
Where is the evidence that they assumed anything?
Stop interrupting me. Just stop.
So where is it? Where's the evidence they assumed anything? Go ahead.
Okay, so under your own admission, this is where you interrupt me again. Under your own admission, they were trying to figure out exactly what kind of spherical shape it was, which means they went in there assuming, well, we know it's like a sphere. We just want to get more accurate as to exactly what kind of sphere it is. You admitted that yourself, you moron.
However, you claimed that an assumption is just blindly believing something. So you need to now establish that people in the 1790s had no reason at all to believe that the Earth was spherical. That is clearly incorrect, since we've had reasons, historically recorded reasons, that go back to Eratosthenes and the ancient Greeks. So it's completely absurd to suggest that people had no reason at all and this was just an assumption or a presupposition. It does not meet your definitions. It does not meet your definitions for those words, does it?
Okay.
Look, does it even matter if it was a presumption?
Yeah, it does matter. It does matter. So anyway, they definitely had the presupposition. Now you're trying to use some semantical sophistry where you're talking about.
It's in your definition of the word.
Hey guys, does the room see what happens? He can't debate me. He can't do it.
Because you're lying. Because you are lying. I am using your definition of the word. That's why I asked you for it.
You're incapable of debating me.
It does not meet your definition of the word, does it?
We'll just count. Let's count how many times he has to interrupt me. So, actually, what they did was they misinterpreted different pieces of data, and then they correlated that to the
evidence that they misinterpreted anything. Go ahead.
There you go. Let's just start counting here. We'll ignore the first 30 interruptions. That's number one. Okay. So what they did was they looked at other pieces of information. They interpreted, trying to explain how it could happen on a sphere, and then with that presupposed idea of the Earth, went and made observations trying to better figure out a radius value and how the topography would lay out on that. Objectively, that's what they did.
But according to you, a presupposition is a blind belief. And now you're describing the fact that they had data which led them to a belief. So that isn't a blind belief. It does not meet your definition for a presupposition. You lose.
Okay, so we'll redefine it. Okay.
Yes, you redefine your definition because now you've got to, right?
Yeah, just because I said the word blind.
Let's have your new definition for presupposition.
Go
ahead.
Number four interruption. So just because I said the word blind, you've started screaming and spiraling and focused on that. So we'll remove the word blind, and it's a belief that isn't empirically validated, yet you reify it via presupposition to try to explain how the phenomena would work if your presupposition was true.
Okay, so what data did they work from that was not empirical?
How many times is presupposition going to appear in his definition of presupposition?
I was explaining the actual process of them doing this and how it applies to presupposition, buddy.
You're redefining presupposition.
And you're just going mute curved. Okay, so the actual point here is that what they did was they assumed the Earth was a sphere. They then went and took known distances that they got with plane survey data, right? And they compiled them over long distances. They made observations in the distance. It constantly fluctuated the apparent location. They took an average and tried to effectively reverse engineer a spherical dimensions. And then, because this is the problem, whenever they had this idea of the radius, right, it doesn't match up with the actual physical measurements of the Earth. So they're trying to figure out how much do they have to flatten it to make it look like it can work in theory. And that's what the entire motivation for it was, trying to figure out and iron out the wrinkles in your presupposition of a sphere. And that's objectively what happened. And then
it doesn't meet either of your definitions for presupposition, unless you can tell me what data they worked from that was not empirical.
Yeah, they went and looked at apparent locations. They took the
Okay, how
fluctuation.
is looking at something not empirical?
Because when you conflate it to an actual location, but it's actually just an apparent location, that isn't empirical, is it?
Everything they look at apparent positions.
When you look
Is
at
an
something,
apparent position the same as an actual position?
The actual position you're looking at is an apparent position.
And it constantly fluctuates, so
I
you
get a
can't claim it's an
shot,
actual
Nick,
position, can you?
please? I'd like to get a shot.
right, empirical means based on,
No
concerned
one can
with,
answer.
or-
It's so funny.
empirical means based on, concerned with, or verifiable by observation
Yes.
or experience rather than theory or pure logic.
Yeah. You see what happens when
This
you
is
stop
their
interrupting? You
this
already
is their
lost.
observation and experience that we're talking about. They don't have anything else, do they?
Hey, is an apparent location the same as an actual location?
It's
Yeah,
irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's still their observation and experience.
Okay, so
show
can
how
you
that-
That's
that-
the
answer the
definition of
question?
empirical.
Can anyone
How
answer the
does-
question?
What's
It's
it? How does that data
irrelevant.
without
I
the
have
data-
answered the question. It's irrelevant. It doesn't
No,
matter.
it's not irrelevant because your claim is that it's about an actual location.
It isn't.
I don't hear any relevance.
My claim isn't that. My claim is what empirical is and what evidence these people
Hey,
have to
stop
work
trying
from.
to divert away with
I'm not.
semantics.
The question
Yeah.
is, WITSIT, is your objection to this is it relies on presuppositions. In order to make that stick, you've had to read, after I asked you for a definition of presupposition, you've had to redefine it. You redefined it to drop the word blindly and include the word empirical. But that does not get you out of this hole. They're still working from empirical evidence. It's still not an assumption, and it's still not a presupposition. You are wrong.
Okay, it is a presupposition, right? So, for example, when they look at
What
the
are your
side,
data is missing with it. It doesn't matter.
every
Fuck it.
single time.
Nonstop.
No, serious. I've been trying to ask you.
let
though,
him
but
finish,
you're
man.
just repeating yourself. You're gonna want to repeat yourself over. I know you guys want to do it, but let me just ask you from a different angle. What data is missing? What would it look like if they didn't do this suppositional twist with the data? What would it look like then? Why don't we do that? I mean, why are you just
And
gonna
they would
argue
know
it?
that because these guys are mental midgets and they're
I
dishonest.
got
I'm
it. So
going
what
to
work with
expose
the
them.
people that want to know it though?
Okay, so what it
You know?
is, if you would actually entertain both possibilities honestly, but they did not do that. So you would look out and you would see a fluctuation in the apparent location as you make observations using plain survey data to know the distance.
Okay,
So
calm
use
down.
flat-
So calm down. So sell me the flat Earth with that data then, without the presupposition.
It's very simple. So you have a flat Earth, and then you look out and you see something in the distance, and based on the atmosphere, it constantly moves up and down and back and forth, constantly moves. That's what happens on a flat
Appreciate it, but
surface.
When you said it
Sounds a
yourself,
little
they
loose.
took the average. They took the average and they got the data that pointed to the globe. Because it
Right.
was
So what they did was take the average and assume that they can conflate that to an actual location.
No, they took the average because that's what you would do if something was fluctuating like that.
But that is the assumption that you're seeing an actual location. And actually, they throw out anything that's too much of an outlier. Like, just like with modern day geodetic surveying, they get an observation where the radius value would be way too great. So they ignore that, right? But if you were actually being honest about it and you're trying to decide, is this happening over a flat Earth or not, you would see that one of them is so great of a change, it's impossible that it be on a globe. But you guys just throw it out.
Think about what you're saying with it. Whenever you get a bunch of data and it fluctuates because there's something like the atmosphere messing with it, and you get a bunch of data that's all collected together, and you get one thing that's wildly different, then yes, you throw out that wildly different one so it doesn't mess with your average. Because if you don't throw it out, then I guess you would assume that, oh, it's wildly different. The Earth is much bigger for this one brief moment in time, when actually it's probably more likely that the atmosphere was doing something funky, causing that measurement to happen.
Yeah, maybe I'll
Mess
explain
with
it
your
like
average.
this for you. I'll explain it like this for you guys. So we know that the refraction of the atmosphere always has an effect on these observations, okay? And it constantly fluctuates. So if we look over a flat Earth, it's not going to be exactly where it is ever because refraction's always present. But you guys will take an average of the apparent location, and then you will actually say that it's representative of the actual location when it's literally impossible that it is.
Do you want to discount the refraction?
You guys can't answer. You guys can't respond.
I am responding. Do you want to discount the refraction and just take the measurement?
You can't discount refraction.
Would that, well then, okay, so what do you do?
You know that this is a fool's errand because you can't claim an actual location with an observation
What
like
do you
this. You don't do this dumbass observation because
you
you physically measure the Earth and it's always flat everywhere.
How are you going to do that?
Using plane survey data.
Planar assumes flat.
Yeah, and that's the only way that measuring the Earth works.
So you're okay with presupposing the Earth is flat and that your measurements.
That's the only way you can measure the Earth.
Yeah, you can measure it
It's not the only way. It's not the only way.
Yeah, you have to drop a plumb line to perpendicular to the assumed plane.
George measured and measured curvature. So what you're saying is not true. Now, WITSIT, if you're going to stand on one side of Lake Ontario, and you are at Olcott, New York, and you're looking about 40 miles away at Toronto at the CN Tower, why is your 6 foot above the water level device, your auto level is going to intersect the CN Tower roughly 600 or so feet, maybe more, maybe less, above the lake level on the other side? Why is that?
It constantly fluctuates based on atmospheric conditions, and when it's clear outside.
But why is it so far off? If the Earth is
that
flat,
would have to be the baseline.
why is the tower sinking so damn much?
Because you're looking
not
through
just the base, but the top as well.
You're looking through an
Measured
atmosphere.
angle to the top will not comport to a flat Earth either.
Because you're looking through an atmosphere.
What is the atmosphere doing to cause this effect?
Yeah, there are refractive effects, and you also have to account for angular size change with distance.
No, I'm not asking
every
for
time.
buzzwords.
I get interrupted every time.
I'm not asking for buzzwords. I'm asking for an
So you have
explanation
30
of
people in here
the
debating me, and you
process.
still got to interrupt me? Does that not raise a red
How
flag
does
to
it
you guys?
work?
Okay, so here's how it works. You're looking over a flat Earth. You're looking through something called the atmosphere. It's going to cause refractive effects. So when it's clear outside, there you go. Interrupt me again. I bet it hurts the ball now, huh? So whenever you look through a vast distance and it constantly fluctuates, that's because of the atmospheric refractive effects. This is what we expect. When it's clearer outside, you can see further with less obstruction, though.
I do want to.
How do you know it's fluctuating? How do you know what the fluctuations are and their effects? How do you know what effect it's having on the observation?
Well, you would have to either assume that it's on a flat Earth or on a globe, wouldn't you?
No, I'm asking you how you know that this refraction is going on and what effect it's having and how.
The way we know it's going on is because it constantly fluctuates its apparent position curved.
I didn't ask you that.
Yes, you did.
Why are you so scared to answer the question?
I'm not scared of
How do you
anything.
know what effect it's having, which way it's displacing the target?
What effect it's having, it's relative to what it is that you perceive, isn't it, curved?
That is some cockamamie bullshit right there.
You guys
You're
really don't
fucking
understand. You
clueless,
guys
aren't
just
you,
are
with
so
it?
dumb.
What does
You're
that
so
mean?
dumb.
You said it was unpack what
You're
you
so
should be
dumb.
embarrassed.
Oh
You
yeah,
should be
I should be
embarrassed right
embarrassed.
now.
I should be embarrassed. Okay, put a
Unpack
GoPro
what
on
you
you
just
and
said,
just
man.
sit
It
up,
makes sense.
talk
You
about
said
who's
it.
embarrassed. So here's actually the very simple part. I've already said it, and you guys skated past it. And once again, you won't respond. So what you're doing is you're looking over distances of atmosphere that causes refractive effects. We have an apparent location that constantly fluctuates. If we're looking over a flat Earth, we would not expect to see exactly what it is because we're looking through atmosphere. But what you guys do is you take the average of the apparent location that fluctuates, and then you try to conflate it to actual location.
That's not what Curve's asking, though. He's asking.
You can't answer. You can't answer.
When you make these observations, it's cutting off half the building.
Not always. Is it always?
Yeah, not
doing
always.
that?
Sometimes more. Sometimes a little bit less.
Sometimes you'll see the building, huh?
So yeah. So how is it doing that?
How do we see the building?
Refraction is not going to allow it to just cut off half the building arbitrarily.
Yeah, it does, because at times when it's clear outside, you can see the building, Kosho.
Sometimes when it's clear, sure. Sometimes when it's completely clear, rarely. Right. But most of the time, it's cutting off some portion of the building.
So when it's clear outside, when it's clearer outside and there's less refraction, you can see more of the building.
Do we see the whole building?
It's clearer. There's less refraction when you see that. There's probably more.
So when it's clearer outside, there's probably more refraction.
No, but it's probably not clear. Yeah.
Do we ever see the whole CN Tower?
What?
I've been waiting patiently. I would like to have a go before someone else. WITSIT, that's a completely different.
Nope, not going to answer them.
Well, yeah, just ask that after we get the CN tower thing. Then
You're not going to answer what? My
I'm
question?
not going to answer a diversion until someone acknowledges what I said.
A diversion. All right. Okay. Well,
Just wait,
wants to answer them, and then I'll go.
Let Mike do the CN tower thing real quick, and then afterwards.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to work out.
Do we have any? Do we have any images of the entire CN tower? You say it shows the whole thing. Sounds like an assumption.
No, I just said that you'll see more of the building when it's clearer outside, and you guys claim that's when there's the most refraction because you're psychopaths.
It's a refraction that's going to allow you to see more of the building.
So when it's clear outside,
it's going to bend it up over the hump.
So when it's clearer outside,
when it's clearer outside.
So when it's clearer outside, is there more refraction?
When it's clear, usually it's not more clear when there's more refraction, but usually you can see more of something because it's going to be over the horizon.
Kosho, I go make observations all the time. When it's clearer outside, you can see further.
You can see further, but that doesn't mean you can see more of the object. So sometimes you can see further, and because there's more refraction, the thing will be wavy and distorted. Sometimes you can see further, and the thing's clear. But the thing that's causing you to see further is going to be more refraction, regardless.
Oh yeah, just reify your belief system. So if I go out over a body of water,
that's what's allowing you to see further.
Yeah, you just reified your belief system. So if I go,
hold on. Wouldn't we be reifying in either way? You said to do these. Okay, let me elaborate the question, because you were picking on them for presupposing the sphere. Then Curver, we asked you how you do it. And I love you, everything, man. But you said you got to presuppose the flat Earth. I'm a little bit confused. Okay.
Let me enlighten you. Let me enlighten you.
I don't know. What we're
That's a
talking
different
about
subject.
is being able to see further because of whatever atmospheric effects. And the atmospheric effect that allows you to see things that would ordinarily be hidden by the horizon is called refraction. The thing that bends that light up and over the horizon.
Yeah. So you presupposed your belief system.
That's not presupposed. What mechanism do you say gives you that ability?
Right. How do we know which one it is?
This is how we know, because when it's clearer outside, you can see further. So when I go
presuppose a ball, it's a ball. WITSIT. And
if you presuppose the ball, then if you presuppose the ball, then when it's clear outside, that's when you have the most refraction.
Yes,
we're not talking about seeing distance.
We avoid presupposing stuff by looking at all the possibilities. The possibilities of what makes an object disappear is a hump of Earth curvature, or the diffraction limit making something disappear under the surface, including the sun and the space below it. So as an object gets further away, even over a flat surface, it can potentially disappear, messing with your angles due to the diffraction limit. So we'd have to explore this other possibility.
So look, if I go out to the body of water and it's not very clear outside and it looks like half the building's missing, and then I go back the next day, it's way clearer outside and I can see much more of the building. Hyperlogically, it's because, well, it's clear outside, we can see further because there's less obstruction, and now we can see more of what's really there because there's less obstruction. It's clearer. But what you guys say is that when it's clearer outside, actually, there's the most refraction.
I'm telling you that what you're talking about, clearness and all that stuff, is irrelevant because it can be clear, not clear, it doesn't matter. But in the Black Swan pictures, for example, the days where the horizon is in front of both of the piers, it's clearly clearer. And whenever it's you can see the horizons behind both the piers, it's clearly more distorted. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a it's not like
all right, then let's go over the possibilities, Mr. Coach. The possibilities are it's a globe and the object is being lifted over the hump of Earth curvature by refraction, or it's flat and the diffraction limit is making the object merge into the surface or pop out of the surface occasionally by magnification where it is right there in front of your face over the flat plane. Those are the two possibilities.
And you guys are basically just sitting here conceding my original point, which is that if you're looking over vast distances through the atmosphere, you cannot claim an actual position. So you guys just selectively choose your position because you have to do mental gymnastics to claim the Earth's a globe.
So your position is we can't use it, basically, because it's messy. It can be either one. So we shouldn't use it, and you just want them to be loose on the topic, right? Is that?
I want them to stop invoking geodetic surveying and using the dumbass phrase that we physically measured the curvature with it.
Okay. Well, geodetic survey is going to suffer from the ceiling merging with the floor, cutting off the image. So unless that's factored in, we may be assuming that it is a hump of Earth curvature blocking what's beyond.
That's fair, Lemma. That's fair. And the word physical, and the word measure, like these have definitions that we use, and they're fine. Like when you do triangulation, you're physically measuring the distance to something by making physical measurements, whether the measurement was optically or whatever. Okay, when you're physically looking at like where objects are and comparing them, these are physical measurements. When you're looking at a rule, when you're comparing a yardstick to a fucking wall, you're physically measuring the wall. Okay, so these are all physical measurements. So just because you're not pacing it with your toe to heel and walking this in doesn't mean it's not a physical measurement. Okay, but surveyors do are physical measurements.
Oh, no, they don't.
Triangulation, you're assuming that the object between the two observers. The thing is, if you're looking at something as big as a city line that is miles and miles, long, and you're trying to get a triangulation on it, it's going to become garbage because really it's like 10 or 20 miles deep, from length to length. But it's so far away, you think that you can triangulate it between two observers who are really close, who are only like 10 feet away from each other. So these triangulations kind of appear to imply or, assume that the object's small enough to fit between the two observers. That's not always the case.
What the fuck was that mess?
Okay, when it's clear,
something, it has to be between the two observers and smaller than the two observers. Otherwise, the triangulation becomes increasingly off.
Yeah, the way that we could determine that the Earth was a ball is that triangulation assumes an actual position. So the way that we could determine that the Earth was a ball would be we could physically measure a consistent location of Earth curvature that is consistent with the radius value. The problem for you guys is that's never been done. It will never be done. It can't be done.
I told you this yesterday, WITSIT. I told you this yesterday. You can take, which we're not going to get into the satellites or whatever, but that's one method of doing it. Then you can take the Aristoteles method, and done from different locations, different centuries, whatever, different variables. And then you can take Al-Biruni's method, done from different altitudes by different people, whenever. And whenever you do these tests and you find that no matter what altitude you do it from, you get the same. You get around the same. You approach the same number, the same radius that you're actually measuring something and confirming it over and over again.
But Kosho, let me tell Kosho real quick. What's it? Are you sure? Because you could use the Discovery Channel method and you figure out that they're faking helicopters and shit like that. So are you sure?
Don, what the hell does that have to do with what I just said?
Are you sure this shit's gonna work? Is what I'm saying to you.
Don, I didn't say anything about anything. Is anything gonna work? Like I'm relying on that it's gonna work. I'm telling you, it works. It's already worked.
Every time
I've done this test. I've done the Aristoteles test more than 2 years, right? Or more than 2 times a year. There's people who've done it at the same time I did it last year. We all get the same number as the radius. Every time people do it, they get the number that the radius is.
Yeah, I just now posted a video.
Okay, so wait, on that note,
you do it correctly, you get the same radius.
I just posted a video that proves you can take a flat surface table that you can then try to assume it's a sphere, and then you can come up with a radius.
Anybody who believes this video is a retard, and there's why. Because he claims he's measuring 9 different points. If you were a thinking man, you would realize he's only measuring 2 different points. He's measuring 1 point beneath the nail, and 1 point a little bit further, another point a little bit further, and then circling around, doing that in a complete circle from the same position. So all 4 of those quadrants are identical. He's not measuring 9 different nails.
Okay, so if I post another video with like 40 nails, and it shows that that it works perfect on a flat Earth, what are you going to say then?
They weren't symmetrical.
This seems worth talking about.
This is symmetrical in all 4 quadrants. That means they're not unique.
So if there are 40 different nails,
just like the other
what you
ones.
say, WITSIT. Show it. Show us.
Okay, because according to your model,
I was one that recording.
According to your model, you can't do more than 3, or you can't do more than 2, right?
Yeah, and according to this video, he says the same thing whenever he shows the Aristoteles picture, and he says it works the same way on a flat plane. It has the picture of the globe with 3 sticks or 2 sticks and the flat plane, and he says in the bottom corner of the screen, it doesn't work like this. Actually, he fucking makes sure that he gets that out there because it's the truth. It doesn't work like that. If you have 3 sticks, it won't give you the same answer on a flat plane or a globe. So he's not doing it with 9 sticks. He's doing it with 1 position below the light and 2 sticks. That's all he's doing.
Yeah, so again, whenever I invoke the video that shows tons of different nails all over the table, and it works on a flat Earth, you're going to say it's wrong.
Don't even address what I said, man.
Referencing 3 simultaneously, or like Kosho's saying, are they only doing a 2-piece, bro? So
no,
anyway,
they're addressing them all simultaneously.
Okay, let's talk about.
Are they not identical to each other?
They've got to be different distances, and they've got to comport linearly. The angle has to comport with the distance linearly.
You guys still think Aristoteles proves the Earth's a globe?
That's not the question.
Measures the size of it.
Why are you such an intellectual pussy?
No, you guys. No, that's you, buddy. You can't acknowledge that.
Oh no, the no you argument. Oh,
Perv, can you
requires-
address the evidence the way Kosho did? Kosho has reasons why he doesn't like the video. Could you tell me
God,
why?
I did. He won't. This little fucking pussy won't answer the fucking question. He skirts away from it.
Well, I
see
know
that
that
sometimes.
Eratosthenes doesn't prove shit, and you guys are lost, and you still think it
I'm
does.
doing Eratosthenes.
You guys
We're doing
don't
it with
think for
multiple
yourself. You
points,
just
different
Google.
distances.
This is why you think the air is going to kill you, and the vaccine's
That's not
good
what's
for
happening.
you. And you guys are
A
psychopaths.
stream of lies. You're a fountain of lies. What's it?
No, that's
Sell
you,
me
buddy.
the video, WITSIT. Sell it to me, dude.
Okay, I have to go get it. That's what, by the way, that's what I have to always do. I always have to run. No, see,
He does one point. He does one point right beneath the light,
Don.
Don. He does 1 point right beneath the light. Then he does it maybe 2 inches away in one direction, 2 inches away in the opposite 180 degrees direction, and the same thing perpendicular to that. So it's like 4 different quadrants, all 2 inches away from the center. And then he does another one 2 more inches away, or whatever the distance is, and the same thing in all 4 quadrants. So what you end up with, the angle from the middle dot is obviously going to be 0 degrees or 90 degrees. The angle from the 2 inch away dot or nail is all going to be identical.
Similar.
They're going to be the same angle as all 4 of them.
But now you have a third point that you said they went to.
Yeah, and the only other thing with this is he's using a light. He uses like a weird Fresnel lens thing where it's like distorts the light and changes the position. And then the precision of these measurements are not even near close enough to make get the actual angle of what it's producing.
Fuck that, he cheats. He has a big ass lens in this thing. Show me the big ass lens in the sky.
He has all type of weird things, but the only claim WITSIT put on the table is, can you do the layout on flat but make the data look curved?
Yeah, when you cheat, use a big ass lens.
And people said no to him and disagreed with him, and now he's brought the thing.
And then I told you how this guy is lying.
Because
okay, calm down. Okay, one, calm down, and 2, how is he lying?
He's using a lens.
He says he's doing 9 points. He's only doing 2 unique points and the one beneath the light. So you can say 3 if you want. The problem is whenever you measure, when he makes the measurements, Don, he measures the nail, which is only about 2 inches or whatever, measures the shadow. The amount of error between the length of the shadow that it's producing, he doesn't have a precise enough measuring thing to measure the length of that shadow to make an actual angle of that light. Plus, he put an arbitrary fucking lens in the light, so it's distorting it. It's like the whole thing is completely does not tell you anything.
We've known about the lens from the beginning, though, and it was like the Globers still wanted WITSIT to get it, even
no one told him to get this.
Yes, they did. I was.
Well, the thing is,
yes,
Kurt told him to get a 40.1 because after he posted this, he said that he can get one with 40 shadows, and we denied still. So Kurt said, "Get that." That's after he produced it. There's not a video like that though.
It's just a way to account for the parts of the object that disappear. You can say that it's disappearing over a ball as it's rolling away on the globe, or you can say that it's being eaten up by the diffraction limit over a flattish surface. It's just a way to account for the part of the object that disappears.
Not about disappearance. You're way off.
It's the same thing with the sun. The sun will eventually merge with the surface, or the space below the sun will do the same thing.
Not what this is about.
If you take like a pole,
I'm not sure you even know what we're talking about.
If you take a pole going from the surface up to the sun, just like a pole in a parking lot, eventually it will merge with the surface. The space below the sun and the sun itself will eventually merge with the surface, even over a flat plane by the diffraction limit. It's the same principle.
Now when it's 30 arcane, it's big. But he's got a fucking lens in this
thing. But what
thing.
you're talking about eventually touches on that, Kosho, because your angle up to the sun will include the space below the sun to the surface and the sun itself. That will be eaten up by the diffraction limit too. That's why I talked about the pole extending from the surface up to the sun. Just like looking out over a parking lot, that pole will merge with the surface even if it's flat. The space below the sun and the sun itself will merge with the surface too, messing with your angle, even though it's flat. It's the same thing.
There will be a different rate. There's a different rate if the surface is flat versus if the surface is curved.
Sun is overhead, Lemon. It has nothing to do with it.
Different.
Okay, then on a flat surface, you will trace a circle over the flat surface as the sun circles over said flat surface. You're not going to get one position. You're going to get
about the drop of your poles going off into the distance. If it's truly flat, it will drop according to trigonometry on a flat plane. If the surface is curved and all of those poles are the same height as they get farther away in the distance, their relative angle from the original measuring point is going to change at a rate that comports with the curve of, or the radius of that curve. This is what you
have a sun that's going in a curved path, though. So why are you assuming linearity if it's not going away in a straight line? It's going away in a curved circle.
I'm talking about your specific go-to example of light poles going down off into the distance on a flat surface. Yeah, of course they appear to get smaller, but the rate at which they appear to drop is going to be different on a flat surface versus curved. So
how different? I mean, will it be different enough for it to even matter? I mean, it's circling overhead. I don't know if we can really even say that. It just gets further away. That's it.
You can't answer the how different until you tell me how curved.
Well, you can account for the curve with refraction over a flat surface as it gets further and further away, and it goes through thicker and thicker air layers. As it gets further away,
he just dismissed refraction. Aristophanes didn't even account for refraction. He assumed a parallel rays in a distant sun. So we don't have to worry about a phenomenon we know exists.
Why would you need to?
We're not dealing with Eratosthenes.
Well, Aristophanes
I'm gonna be honest.
Religious leader here.
My sly coach.
I don't know why you're rejecting that. I don't know why y'all rejecting that WITSIT produced what he was asked for. I mean,
he wasn't asked for that Don. He didn't. He was not asked for that Don. He produced it on his own, and then when he produced it, curved. He said he could bring up one that had 40 things. Curved.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
He hasn't yet.
I'm trying to find it.
Coach,
as soon as I find it, you guys will just shut up and act like I did.
Maybe not today, but he was asked for this 2 days ago.
So he uses
He's not providing what was asked for.
He uses somebody who gives a big ass lens in the way, and you wonder why we get upset that he uses a big ass lens.
This is one of the dumbest flat Earth videos that's ever been made, and he basically admits it in his video by telling you it doesn't work like this.
Why?
So I don't know why. I mean, Dr. Zach doesn't even. Yeah.
The fact that you supported Don is evidence.
I don't support. I'm asking you why you're saying WITSIT can't produce something, then he produces it, then you coach will say nobody asked.
Nobody asked to produce this, man.
I love when flirfs use a big lens and then say, "Oh, the sky's a big lens." Yeah,
I love whenever people with low IQs use the word flirf like it makes them right.
The sky is a big lens still because we have a dome on top and it's curving up toward Antarctica, so that basically makes a lens that's concave up and concave down, among other things. And also, it's a really